The Magicians podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle.
I'll have a go, and if I don't succeed, that's fine. But the last thing you want to do is get old and go, I could have done it. You know?
Hello my friends, welcome to the Magicians podcast. I'm your host Richard Young, here for the next 60 minutes. We're going to be talking to Jamie Allan, star of the iMagician tour. This is the final week of the series and I decided we should go out with a bang, so I've uploaded 2 episodes today. Episode 24 is available for your immediate listening pleasure after you've listened to this episode, obviously. It's with the brilliant Nick Einhorn. As it's the end of the series, it has never been more important for you to follow us on Twitter than it is today. We are at Magician Podcast, no S on the Magician, or of course you can like our Facebook page, just search for The Magicians Podcast. The reason you need to either like us or follow us is because if I do decide to make a series 2, and I'm not quite sure at the moment, then our Twitter feed or our Facebook feed will let you know if we're back at any point in the future. Now, of course, I don't know whether you're currently listening to your first episode of the Magicians podcast, or perhaps you're someone who tunes in every single week. So allow me to explain. Every single guest I've had on this show, I've had on because I am a big fan of whatever it is that they do. And my guest today, Jamie Allan, is someone we should all be a fan of. The reason is because he is actually out there doing it. Here is a magician who isn't just sitting around talking about what he'd like to do in the future. He's actually invested a huge amount of his own money and he's created some brilliant original magic, and he's out there on a national tour selling tickets to the public. I was genuinely thrilled when he agreed to do this podcast. We're going to talk about some of his brilliant original magic. If you've never seen his iPad trick, pause this podcast right now, go to YouTube and have a look at it. Just type in Jamie Allan iPad magic. It's brilliant and sums up everything this guy is doing right now. We're also, of course, going to talk about all the things he's doing on the iMagician tour, which is going to continue around the UK until the end of May 2015. Okay, I think we're ready to start. Here he is then, Mr. Jamie Allan. So delighted to say I'm sat here with the star of the iMagician tour, Jamie Allan. How are you?
I'm very well, Richard. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it. And you've had a really interesting career, and I'm aware also that you've been involved in some projects some magicians won't know about. So hope you're going to cover all of that.
Sure.
But on your website, there's no biography in terms to your upbringing, where you're from, that kind of thing. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of...
I'm an only child. I was brought up in a village called Cungerston, which is in the Midlands, and it was kind of removed. There was no other kids my own age. I sound like Copperfield now when I'm talking about this. And my mum and dad were in show business. So my mother was a singer. My father was a songwriter, musician, and they were both in show business, and I grew up with them on the road, so I was proper showbiz background growing up. I mean, all of the people that used to look after me were, at the time, kind of well-known celebrities of that era. So I had a really exciting time as a kid, so I think there was no danger that I was never going to go into show business. I think that was always on the cards for me.
How was school?
It was awful. I hated school with a passion. I had a couple of good friends that helped me get through it, but I was never one of the in crowd, and I took a lot of flack for doing magic when I was at my first school. When I went to my second school, I tried to keep it under wraps and didn't tell anybody that I did magic for quite a while, but it got out anyway because I was in some local paper for something and it was bound to happen. Some people think it's cool, some people treated it very differently. But everybody I can remember when I was young that was slightly different are the only ones that I know from school are the ones that have gone on to interesting lives. So, you know, if you're having a hard time at school, if there's any kids listening to this and you have a hard time at school, I would say that's good because you're probably going to have the best life.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned you were doing magic in first school, so you were really young to it in that case. What sort of age did you fall in love with magic?
When I was 5. I mean, when I used to do interviews, I used to say, oh, I got a magic set, and I hear a lot of magicians going, oh my god, that's how everybody says they started in magic. But I was thinking about it, and it's not actually true. interested in magic because my mum and dad had a cabaret club. They stopped touring so I could go to school, and they bought an old pub called the Horse and Jockey, and they knocked the bar and the lounge into one cabaret theatre and built a stage with lights and made it into a 200-seater cabaret venue. And we used to have, at the time, like your Little and Larges and Jim Bowens and people that were boiling off at that point and became into the price range, but still incredibly good acts. So I used to do my shows there on Thursdays and Fridays. I would do 5 minutes when I was about 8, but it was there when I was 5 that I saw a magician called John Milner, who I just actually befriended on Facebook the other day. And John doesn't actually know, but he was the first magician that I ever saw when I was a kid.
Wow.
I was thinking about that influence that you get. You know, who actually influences you when you get into magic? And for me, it was, I could name all the people on one hand of all the people that really had any direct influence on me that made me who I am
Can
today.
you name them? I'd love to know who they are.
Well, I would say obviously John Milner, because he was the first person. This is now I'm thinking about this. I would say that my teacher was a guy called John McDill, who was also known as Martin Noble, was his stage name, who was taught by John Ramsey. And he tutored me from when I was about 9 or 10 till I was about 13 years old. And obviously he was the best magician that to this day that I still knew from the point of view of, he knew it as a stagecraft, and he taught me techniques. And when I was a kid, he was the first person that said to me, he said, "How many tricks do you know?" And I said, and I tried to name some big figure, I can't remember what it was, but I said something like 100 or something like that. And he said, "Well, that's strange because I only know 7 tricks." And the point of his exercise was that you'll go on to learn these same routines, and that doesn't really work in today's market, because now it's all about, have you got the new thing, have you got the new thing? But the professionals, we still always do go back to the same routines. I'm sure most people do. Steve Valentine, who was it was a well-known magician in the States. He was known as an actor, but I met him when I was a kid, and he took time for me. I was on holiday, and I was only maybe 10 years old, and he was doing magic every night at this casino thing across the road. And my mum hooked me up with him, and he spent afternoons with me every day, and he took time for me. And so I always remember that. And in fact, I was on a cruise ship a few years ago, and this kid came up to me after the show with his father, and his dad wanted to know if he could meet me at all the next day, just to say hello or something. So I arranged to meet him, and I spent 3 hours or 4 hours with the kid, and I showed him some moves and told him where he was going wrong and things. And when he got up and he left, and he was sort of really emotional about it, and he said, "This has been the best day of my life." And I realised, wow, that's incredible that you could go full circle, and you could be in the position where you could influence somebody, and that really meant something. So I thought, well, that's really cool. I always try to take time for people, where it's possible anyway.
Yeah.
And probably there was another guy, Glenn Bonner, who was the local magician in my area that was the pro. He was the only sort of cabaret magician. Again, he came many times to the Horse and Jockey, was always very kind to me. And also somebody who's now become a good friend of mine, but at the time had a profound influence on me, was Russ Stevens. When I saw Mystique for the first time, I would have been either 13 or 14 years old when I first went with my mum and dad to see Mystique, and I didn't know anything like it. And I think the moment that I saw Mystique was the moment I knew that, beyond any doubt, that I absolutely had to do that somehow. So I think that those are all the people. And I think if I hadn't met any one of those, I believe that I may have gone in a different direction.
Wow. So you mentioned you weren't very good at school, so I'm guessing university wasn't an avenue for you. So what happened? Where did you start making your living?
Well, I was lucky to get a summer season when I was 16. So I actually left school when I was 15, just before my exams, which was okay. I didn't run away, but they said, look, you can come back and sit them. But I dug out a final report from my school a few days ago when I was going through some old stuff, because we were in the middle of trying to start packing up to move house, and I found this thing. And it was hilarious, because it basically said, although Jamie's time here has been entertaining, he needs to buckle down because he's never going to amount to anything. And we wish him well, but, he needs to concentrate because it's raised questions about his attitude and things, because I was dyslexic at school, and I started dyslexic. They didn't work it out at first. So I had a terrible time. So I think when I had this job and I said to the teachers, they put it down as my work experience and said, well, you can leave early and go and do it, because it was obviously more important to me. And I was a room compere at Kiln Leisure Park, which was a Bourne Leisure at the time, and I was basically like Haven mate or a red coat, for my first year, and I did.
And what sort of things were you doing there? Like sort of stand-up magic?
Yeah, I had a couple of illusions. I had a zigzag lady that my mum and dad had bought me for Christmas a few years back, and my dad had built me a sub trunk, and I did the usual stuff, stock stuff, just learning my craft. And the next year I was lucky enough to be doing Haven Warner's holiday circuit as a cabaret. When I was 17, I was driving around and making no money, getting about £100 a night, and most of that was going to pay the assistant and the fuel and the stuff. And by the time I actually got out of it, I don't think I made any money, but I was getting this experience, and I was doing, I was being able to buy my food, and I was a real magician. I had the best job in the world. And then I was working the next year on Brittany ferries. I'm like, yes, I've broken the cruise ships.
Brittany ferry.
But yeah, and then slowly I went from there to doing. I had a couple of TVs back in the day, which got me working on the cruise market. And then I vanished out of touch for a few years, really, because I was just working on the cruise ships constantly, which is something I still do. But now I'm lucky enough that I only work for, maybe 2 nights at a time, 3 nights even. But, I fly out, I do the show, I come back, and it's taken me a long time to...
So did you ever have like a full illusion show on the ships? Did you do like a long contract with a big show? Or
yeah, I did several.
Ship?
The biggest contract I ever did was on Queen Mary 2 when it was launched. Up until that point, I went through the Fred Olsen cruise ships and the P&O cruise ships, which were, politely are not the most respected in the industry of the cruising for the quality of, the standard that you're used to. When you go to some of the American cruise lines, they're very, very nice to us on the American cruise lines. So, of course, you want to go there. And I broke into... first Holland America, and then Celebrity Cruises and Royal Caribbean, and there were vast showrooms. The money was much better. The accommodation was, with Royal Caribbean I was often getting, nowadays I often get balcony suites and things, and it's really, really nice, and I feel very, very lucky for that. And I did, though, when I got the Queen Mary 2, when it first came out, I asked to put a big show onto there, so I did the helicopter production on there, and I took a water escape that I got from Ross Stevens, which used to belong to Wayne Dobson, and a few other illusions. And it was a big show, and I was really kind of proud of that at the time. I look back on it now and I think it was probably awful, as we all do, but at the time I was very proud. But I also realised when I'd done the first show that I thought, well, this is the pinnacle, isn't it now? I've done it. There's no ascent in this cruise industry for me anymore. And then I spent the next 5 or 6 years actually just trying to work out a way to cut back on it and get out.
Like an exit strategy in a way.
Well, yeah, because I found that I was building my way up in both the fees and the levels of ship, the quality of the gig. And once you've reached a point, it's very minimal, the pay rises, or once you're at a certain point with it. So the only thing you can do now is negotiate your time. So I managed to negotiate that I'd get the same fee, but I'm in and out. So I'd land in one place, do the show the next night, and get off quickly. That's not always the case. There are plenty of times that I do go on still for a week or something, but it's a bit of a give and take. So the vast majority of my work is very, very short, and I still get the same fee that I would get for a week. I miss those old days though, because now I'm doing a fly-on show. I have all my stuff in my suitcase, and I worked out a way that I could do, a big close-up show and use the screens and bring my own cameras and video mixers and laptops.
Did you miss doing the big illusions?
I did miss it, which is why I sort of got back into it on the tour.
Yeah. I've got some friends who work on cruise ships, and one of the things that's always really interesting to talk to them about is the downtime. You'll probably be doing max, I think, of like 3 shows a week. What did you do with the downtime on the cruise ships?
Well, when I was very, very young, I tried my hand at being an alcoholic, but it didn't really work out. When you're a kid and you're young on the ships, the first thing you want to do is party and drink and go to the beach, and you very quickly realise this is nothing. So I learned a skill. I learned to edit video, and okay. I became a certified Apple editor with Final Cut Pro. And I'm always one of these people, I'm all or nothing, I can't get into something unless I truly so I maxed out my credit card. I went to the Apple store and I bought a broadcast camera, I bought the best Mac, I bought Final Cut Pro and external hard drives and a second monitor. And I brought it all back to my cabin on the Veen Dam. I was on Holland America at the time. I went, look at all of this stuff. This is incredible. Now I've got to learn it, because if I don't, I'm the biggest idiot if I've wasted all this money, you know. And I knew the only way to learn it was just to spend all the money. So I had to learn it. Yeah. And I sat down and I did it, and that would save me a fortune over years, because I did that many promos. It became a sideline for me on the ships, because the acts that would come on, I would film them and do their promos for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And there was a time in my life when I thought I could have even gone into that kind of thing, because I found it very creative, like magic, you know.
Yeah. You almost follow the Russ Stevens model, because he learnt the editing on the ships as well.
He did, yeah. In fact, I ran into Russ in Ketchikan in Alaska, and when I just bought the Mac, and he was telling me about it, and we were sharing files and these things. And actually, Russ was a few months ahead of me on it, and he gave me some good tips back in the day. You know, some good advice on it.
When you're on the ships and you're doing this long contract and you're tweaking the show because it's the same show because of stuff, so how is that really where you found yourself as a performer? Because
it's where I learnt everything about stagecraft, because being on the ships, because you've got these theatres that are better equipped than anything you find in London. They're unbelievable with the level of production they have, with the hydraulic lifts and the turntables and the pit lifts, the traps, the stage lighting and the rigging. And if you want to succeed in the ratings, you've got to put on a good level of show on the ship. So you get good at learning how to be your own director and how to use this space, because you're given this wonderful toy of this incredible theatre, and so many people would just come on and say, I'll just close the curtains and put some lights on when I come on, and they're a bit jaded, and you know, and although it's fine, it's those little extra bits that make it into a spectacle. And I've always been quite proud of being able to put on a big show with stuff out of a suitcase and still make it feel like a big concert if it's done correctly. So yeah, I learned everything about stage work from that, you know, inspired by things that I saw at Mystique when I was a kid, and then went on to see big shows around the world. And, you know, I went to Vegas and I was lucky enough to see Siegfried and Roy before they went, and something I'm very grateful for and all that. And, you know, and I always took in the production value of it, and I was more interested in the ambience that was created before the event and the excitement leading up to it as much as the show itself.
I know now you have I think you have a little boy.
I do, yeah, Joshua.
Was that part of the reason for thinking I need to kind of figure out my way off of the ships, like having a family? Was that what you wanted, or?
Well, no, we were just my missus is in show business as well, and as with a lot of show business couples, we always thought, we've got to do it now. We're not going to. There's never a good time, you know. And it was, and it's changed my life, and it's brilliant. You know, it's absolutely brilliant. We have another one actually on the way, so that's great.
Oh, congratulations! I didn't know that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So now, of course, you're back here. I know you're popping out from time to time, but I think what most magicians will know of you now is that, you know, you're doing this big tour called iMagician, and you've done it, I think, in 2013 on a smaller scale, but you're about to tour on a really big scale. We
did it in 2013, 14, and now we're doing the third. This is the third tour. 2013 was a small tour. We went out with a van, and we did effectively an elongated version of my cabaret show with a bit of production. You know, we took out my our set, and we built the big set with the moving lights and this kind of thing. The next year we toured a massive show with the hologram and things like that. And we're touring another show this year, which I'm hoping will be the best one. It's actually slightly smaller than last year's, but it has more in it. I think this one's going to be the best one yet.
Where did the concept of iMagician come from? Can you tell us a bit about the show as well?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, it was all born out of the iPads trick. Everything, I was working on the trick I do with the iPads, which has been my sort of torch song for the last couple of years, and has got me, you know, I've done 3 TVs with that in the last year, so I've been really grateful to that. And I devised that in downtime on a ship. I said, you know, it took me a long time to work out how to get it to work. Not only to get it to work, but to get it to work reliably, which is a whole other ball game. There's one thing to find the technology to make something actually do it, but it's another thing when it's being interfered with in a live theatrical environment when you've got radio mics and everything else.
What can go wrong with the iPad trick?
There's so many things that can go wrong with it. Once it's started, it's usually pretty solid, but we have had problems with it. Okay. But I have it's a whole minefield, and you know, I have technical guys that are scanning frequencies, and so when we've done it on live TV, we kind of get a bit obsessive about it, because that's quite scary. You know, I've done it twice on live TV, and you think, well, if this goes wrong, I mean, what's going to happen? The camera's going to cut to me. They don't come on. You know, it's completely out of my control.
How long was the process of creating the iPad?
It was about 3 years, I think.
Wow.
From when I first decided I wanted to do it to when I was messing around with the technology, but I was trying to get the technology to be stable long before I was successful in coming up with the trick. I have another version of it that I'm working on at the moment, which is going to be much better. I feel like it's a work in progress. Because it was a shame, because I had a 5-minute version of it. It was always supposed to be about the seasons, and the original version that I did was epic. It had so many more effects, and it was really told a story, and it involved a painting at the start and the end. But then I got the one show, and they said that they needed it in a week. So I suddenly had to rush to finish it, and because it was on TV, there was no chance it was going to be 5 minutes. So I had to do it in 2.5. And I got it working, and then we were right into the tour. As a result, it's never been finished. It's always been the 2.5 cut version.
Right.
That it was never. So I've never really visualised my original concept of it. So I intend to go back and kind of finish that.
It's absolutely brilliant, and I think it's a real good signature piece for the show that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the other things that are in the new show?
We've got. I do the routine with the lasers. I do some predictions with Facebook and Twitter and this kind of thing. iMagician is not about doing magic with technology, though. The concept of the show, which I explain to the audience, is to look at magic a different way, or to try and keep magic relevant. It's about doing magic with things that are familiar to you, and we've happened to be familiar with some of this modern technology, so we use some of the technology, but it's about trying to keep it up to date as much as it is with anything else. I've got my new illusion with the split screens in there with the TVs. We did the hologram last year. We're not doing the hologram in every venue this year because it was just too big to get in, and it affected, even though it was so spectacular, it has a negative impact on other stuff in the show because it dominates so much of the stage because it can't be moved.
So this is like a combination of Pepper's Ghost and...
Yeah. It is Pepper's Ghost.
It's Pepper's Ghost, right?
Yeah, but with a levitation and live action. Yeah, it's a great it's a great bit, and I was really, really proud of it, and I was pleased that we did it, and we installed it on this new show just recently, and I was pleased to put it out there, and I just saw Dynamo has used the same technology for the car appearance, which is stunning. It's absolutely stunning. But at least I did it first.
Can I ask? I mean, was that what you decided to do basically when you sort of on the ships? You talked about you kind of looking at how you connect. I use the word exit strategy, so I don't want to put the words in your mouth. That's not what you said. But you're looking for a way to kind of shorten the time that you're on the ships. Was the show already in your head at that point, and you kind of go?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it became a real thing when I tried to pick the title. My manager is the best manager in the world, and that's how it came about. I mean, I had this idea of this show. He said, "What's it going to be called?" And I pulled it out of my head and said, "I'm going to call it iMagician." And I wanted to do a couple of theatres at home because I had that many friends that had said they wanted, people that could never see what I did. I said, I'd like to just for once in my life be a real artist and just go and book a little theatre. And I said, and that became from one, it became 4. I said I was going to do these 4 little theatres, 200-300 seaters, and not only that, I was trying to hire the theatre. I was phoning up to try and hire these theatres, and we couldn't even get them to call us back about hiring the room for the night, just so that we could sell a couple of tickets. And I thought, how could this be so difficult? And then my manager got involved, and he said, well, you're going about it all the wrong way. You don't do that. They have to come to you, not the other way around. And he got some promoters and took the concepts, and all of a sudden, we had all these theatres phoning us up, not only offering to do us good splits, but in some cases offering us big guarantees for the night, to bring the show in.
Right.
And that's all about perception, and it's all,
I hear it every now and again. Magician friends go, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to hire a little theatre," and I go, "You just don't. That's not how it works. It's like you have a tour booker, and then it's it goes the other way around."
It is completely that, and I didn't know myself, and now I'm I know everything about this now. Because it's difficult as well. I mean, if anybody out there is thinking about doing it, my first advice would be really seriously think about it. Because the odds are you're going to lose a lot of money. That's the odds are you'll probably lose a small fortune in the first stages, and you've got to have the ability to stay with it.
So may I ask, are you subsidising it really from the money you made on the ships, or is your manager financially backing the tour?
No, my manager's the producer of the show as well.
Okay.
So but though I have invested heavily in it, but only now are we seeing a return on it.
Yeah.
2 years later, it's not just the show. I mean, you've got huge amounts of money, in PR and marketing. A lot aside from when you're a magician, all you think about is how much the prop's going to cost you. And you only think about what it will actually cost you to take the show around, and you kind of presume that you're going to put up a poster and people will come, but they won't.
Yeah. How many people are involved in the show on a daily basis when it's on tour?
Well, actually, with us on the show this year, it's a little bit smaller. We have, there are 7 people, including myself, on this year's tour. Last year, we were 11 people, but that's because we had 2 vans because on the account of the Pepper's Ghost, the hologram, which was its own, like I say, it was almost its own show in itself. So, with the exception of that, well, now that we've taken that out, we've been able to put actually more magic into the show and improve the quality of the show, and not have this almighty great thing. So we've got a smaller team, which is great.
You've just put a show on a ship.
It's a version of iMagician, just called iMagic.
It's called iMagic. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
That came about because of my work with Celebrity Cruise Lines, who I was, I've been kind of a favourite of for a while. And their head president of entertainment, liked what I did, and I was very, very lucky that she flew over to England to see the touring show last year and said this is something I'd like to put on the ship, and now it lives permanently on the Celebrity Summit with my very good friend Adam Heppenstall is like mini me.
Did they want you to do it basically, and you sort of said no? Or?
No, they didn't. They never expected me to do it. They asked me that they wanted me to open it, which I went and did. And Adam is doing a spectacular job over there, and it has been no mean feat because he's had to learn all of my material, and he's doing some of his own stuff within there as well because it's very important, to get his personality across. And he's going down a storm over there now, and over there they have a full-scale hologram, which is stunning. Because it's installed, so it's stunning. And the levitations, we got the split screens, we got the iPhone productions and the lasers and the iPads and the other stuff, and a beautiful set. And we put in a lot of extra lighting and stuff for that. So it was a really, really big show, and it's there through 2018 on that ship.
The UK tour, iMagician. What's your plans with it? Are you using it perhaps as a vehicle to perhaps get into television, or is it more a tour that you just want to grow? I've
been lucky enough to do a bit of TV. Most of the TV is related to the fact that I'm on tour, so it's a bit of a catch-22. You need to be on tour to get the TV, and you need the TV to go on tour. It's difficult to convince either of them to give you a chance first. I'm touring this year through May, and we've just been fielding some offers. We've had some offers from a couple of other countries to bring the show, from promoters that want us to take it over there. I'm not looking to take on the world, really. I only got into this to have fun, and if it ceased to be fun, I would stop doing it. I enjoy the creative process as much as I enjoy the performance of it. In some cases more so, because it's so exciting when you've got a blank canvas and you come up with all these ideas and see them slowly become real. The disappointing thing is that you never ever achieve what you originally set out to do. It's always a compromise by the time you get to the stage, usually by lack of either money or time. But also remembering that I've operated iMagician basically on a shoestring budget we all have, compared to when you look at where Darcy will be touring this year and Dynamo will be touring with an unprecedented budget. But yeah, as a magician, somehow people will judge you the same. They just judge the show they see, as they should, not how much money has gone into it or how much extra assistance. And people at home don't conceive the difference of the level of cash behind something.
They never think about how it got there or how much space it's taken up backstage.
No.
They don't understand.
No, they wouldn't understand the logistics of it. And so it's a tough job, trying to compete in that kind of competition, with these things that will no doubt be great.
I know a few years back you had another show that you were involved in. It was called Houdini the Musical.
My nemesis.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. It's still ongoing, Houdini the Musical. I staged it, I wrote it with my good mate Simon. We wrote the show together. In 2007 we staged it, we toured it, we lost an absolute fortune. We got some very nice reviews for the show, although looking back I think the show was not ready at the time. It had some wonderful moments, but it was not a great show. But it had some moments that were just fabulous, and we reworked it. I'm good friends with this guy, Ramin Karimloo, who played Phantom for the 25th anniversary. And Ramin was always very supportive of it, and he was involved in it.
He's like considered the best Phantom of the Opera, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And he's a really good guy, Ramin is. And also Hadley Fraser, his mate, who we became friends with, and we worked with a producer in London, Tristan Baker, and we had a financer, and we got to a point where we had a major London theatre booked, and we were 6 months away from an opening, and then the recession hit, and this financer pulled out. He lost a lot of money in one of the businesses, so as a result, we couldn't continue with it. So we were now sat in a situation where we'd had an awful lot of money invested in this fantastic script that had been heavily workshopped with some of the best actors. We had De Winters, the marketing people, had produced all the campaign and everything, and we were right around the corner, and it all just suddenly stopped, and that was a real shame. And it took till now, it was actually only until this year that I've just started taking meetings again about it, because we kind of, none of us had the energy to get it back up. But I think we're going to do it again now. I think we're going to do it maybe even this year.
Really?
Maybe.
What's your dream, Jamie? Would you like to go to Vegas and have a show on the
Well,
Strip?
wouldn't we all like to? Sure. I'd love to. I want to go and play New York, and I want to play Atlantic City, and I want to play Vegas. Before I die. But I'm not bothered about staying out there. I mean, if somebody came along and offered me a load of money to go and stay there, which is not going to happen, let's be honest. But if they were, then that would be a very tough call, wouldn't it? I think it would be kind of a nightmare. What Lance Burton had, all that money. To build your own theatre, all that's so exciting, but then there's a day the show opens, and now you just think, right, well, you've got to come here for every day for 10 years, or then he extended. So it would be a very hard one to say no to.
You're involved in some other interesting projects. I wonder if it's the same guy, actually. You were also involved with a digital comic as well.
Yeah, with Simon, with the Houdini
that's
comic.
Simon again, the same guy.
Yeah, we wrote that. We wrote a series of those. They were for the same producer that was for the Houdini. And there's the episode 1 is on the iTunes store. We were really pleased with it. We have the whole series of them written, but we only ever produced the first one, because after that there was no more made. And I actually, that's something I wish I'd have finished those, because I really got into those little stories.
I'm touching on a few things here, but I hope what's coming across here is just what massive respect I have for you here is that you're just involved in so many interesting things. You're also involved with a laser violinist called, I hope I say this right, Luminar.
That's right, Luminar, yeah.
And you were involved in the technology behind that as well?
Yeah, I put that together. That was myself and my missus. We came up with it, because my missus is a violin player. I say my missus because I don't want to say girlfriend, because we're engaged. So, okay. But by the time this, maybe when this comes out, she will be my wife. So it's so my missus.
Oh, sorry. So it's actually your wife your wife to be is the performer.
She was, yeah. She's a violinist.
Okay, right.
She's not the performer of Lumina. She was one of, when it first started, one of them. We now have 5 people that do it, and we have 3 setups that go around the world. There's one going to Oman this week, and one going to Amsterdam this week, and it's been really nice little business that has. And my wife is a session violinist. She has she plays for Adele and Beyonce and people, and she has so that's been very, very good. And she worked a lot in the corporate market with her own thing, and we came up with Lumina, and I made it work.
Mm-hmm. Have you done, because you were away for a long time, have you done much corporate work with like illusions or stuff?
I've done some. I do some. I don't really like doing corporate work, and this could sound a bit funny, but because I don't like it, I tend to ask for way too much money. And so I always think of a figure that I can't afford to refuse. And if they're foolish enough to go with it, then we do it. But that's not always true, because some corporate events have been lovely. I mean, some of them are a pleasure to work, but some of them can be very, very difficult, particularly when it's not so much the gig itself, but the ins and outs of trying to actually load in and get it sorted, and trying to get any rehearsal time, or the technical requirements. You know what it's like when you're a magician. Everybody thinks you can just do magic. They just think that it's real and you won't have any problem. And they say, yeah, sure, if you can just turn up here and, make the car appear, and then we'll have dinner, and you say, well, it doesn't work like that.
And it's on Wednesday.
Yeah. You're right. It's very, very last minute.
And also something else I've found out that you're involved in is, I don't know what a quartet of magicians called Chicks and Tricks.
Oh, yes.
You're like the producer that you put. Are they magicians, or are they forced?
They were all girls that used to do magic, who were either ex-demonstrators or were were magicians,
Yeah.
in some cases, and we brushed up their skills in some cases to a point where they're brilliant,
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of those girls. Again, that was myself and my wife and Adam and my manager Jonathan Blackburn. Not my manager Jonathan Blackburn. My manager's Joe Wemborne. My manager for the cruise lines and things was Jonathan Blackburn, and we put that together. And they've been. I'm so proud of them. They're so good, and a lot of them have been doing magic a long time. What we did was gave them made them commercial and saleable, really, and now they're going on to do other things. I mean,
So initially they were for girls. It was close-up magic for corporate events. Is that right? That was
originally.
But I see now they're doing some bigger things, aren't they?
Yeah, they keep going from strength to strength, and they're all they're great performers in their own right now. They're all off doing their own magic shows and things, and I'm really genuinely proud of them for getting into it, and they love it. They really love it, and they're fantastic. I can't say enough about them.
And are you managing all of them? I know you're very involved with Jazz Vegas.
Well, Jazz Vegas isn't in Tricks and Tricks.
Oh, right. Okay.
Jazz is our own product, and yes, we manage Jazz, and we're very proud of Jazz. She's just coming out with a new show, Killer Magic, and she's getting an awful lot of attention. I think Jazz will do very, very well.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Brilliant jingle. Gigi-O, my friends, is now being enjoyed by professional and semi-professional magician and entertainers all the way around the world. A free 30-day trial awaits at gigio.co.uk. That's Gigi-O, spelled Giggio.co.uk. It's a web-based software designed for all of your admin needs. It will save you lots and lots of time. It will generate PDF contracts and invoices. It will update your diary automatically and even track your payments. Visit the website right now to see what all the fuss is about. See all the other big names that are using it and their testimonials at gigio.co.uk.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website www.alakazam.co.uk or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
What are your sort of plans for the future, Jamie, over the next few years? Have you got sort of a vision in mind of what you want to be doing? Or?
Well, I just believe you only have this life once, and I think that you just have to go for everything. And a number of years ago, I was going out with a girl and I was in a car with her mother, and I said something about, I'm thinking about one day I want to open a magic bar or something, I said. And she said to me something to the effect of, you always say things like that, but you're just full of it. And I thought, no, I'm not. I just haven't done it yet. But it's stuck with me. And I, the one thing that people, I hope, will say about me is I've not always been successful, but I will always do what I say I'm going to do. And I don't want to be, I don't want to be considered, bullshit artist from that point of view. I want to be, I'll have a go. And if I don't succeed, that's fine. But the last thing you want to do is get old and go, I could have done it. It's okay if you've tried.
I heard you in an interview talking about, you used to have a helicopter appearance.
Yeah.
And you said that was something you always wanted. And was when you first got that illusion, was that kind of that thing of like, I'm doing it now, this is what I...
Yeah, the first time I did the helicopter, it was an amazing rush. I mean, to pull the curtain off and there it is, you feel pretty magic. And and it was, I can honestly think it's the most magic I've ever felt.
Yeah.
The trick never used to get that great a reaction, funnily enough. It was a big spectacle and people loved it. No two ways about it. But they would come up to me and tell me about something with the Ambitious card or something.
That links quite nicely to a project which you put out with Russ Stevens a little while ago, which was a DVD that's available through RSVP Magic called Pack Small Plays Massive.
Or it's available through me. I'm still trying to sell the ones he gave me.
You got the case he gave you, right? Can you tell us a bit about that? How that project came about?
Russ was very kindly enough to ask me if I would be, interested in doing it, and I was flattered because I said I don't have any information for magicians. Magicians like tricks; they're not going to be interested in what I do. I'm too commercial. Because I do these things on the trick, but I'm more about how to present it to an audience, and I'm more interested in how you can get a standing ovation out of the audience with the trick and how you present it. If you present it correctly, not about the mechanics of the trick. I don't think the trick is important. I think it's 100% about your style and personality and how you wrap it up. But Russ seemed to think that people would be interested. I don't think this has been a big seller. I think it's something I was very proud of. Russ particularly liked it because he comes from that stage background. Russ thinks it's a great product. I'm really pleased with it. And
so the idea of the DVD was that you could do small magic on big stages.
That's right, yeah. It was sort of my bread and butter kind of work. And the reason I did it, I had a few of my friends say, "You're crazy. Why on earth are you releasing this much stuff from your act?" And the answer is, well, all the pros, there was plenty of people, I won't name names, it sounds bitter, but there was plenty of people that were stealing my stuff anyway, out on the ships, which they do over a period of time. I was thinking, well, I may as well just release it, so it also forces me to innovate, because I need to keep coming up with new material, and I need a reason to do so.
Yeah.
And that was it. If I give it all away, well, then I have to come up with more stuff.
The best thing on the DVD that I saw was really interesting was your version of Cartoon. How long do you get out of Cartoon when you do that on stage?
Well, I can do it quickly in about 5 minutes, but usually it's about 7 or 8. And it's a big moment, that.
Yeah. Is it true you were closing your show with it?
I have closed with it, yeah. I have closed with it before. I don't always close with it. I certainly don't anymore. I still do it. I can't believe the reaction that I managed to drum out of people for it.
I recently saw you on a show on ITV called Get Your Act Together.
Oh yeah,
and
that's just there.
You were paired with Rufus Hound,
who was brilliant.
He was very funny. But I'm very interested. He wanted to. So the idea of the show is that a celebrity is learning a skill that they don't have, and Jamie was teaching Rufus an illusion.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do it in 80s style with the flares and the big hair. How did you feel about that when you're involved and they sort of tell you that's the direction they're going to go in with it?
Well, I mean, of course, the way that it's edited on the TV, I mean, that's obviously exactly what happened, and we didn't work any of that out or anything. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure working with Rufus, and it became apparent very quickly that although clearly impossible, which was the illusion that we did, is a very good illusion. It doesn't make for an awful lot of entertainment value watching somebody trying to learn it. It's amazing how, from doing illusions yourself, it's amazing how people can judge them and say, well, you just can buy that and get in it. Yeah. But they can be incredibly difficult things to tame and to work out how to present correctly. They're not easy. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to stand here and say it's the most incredibly difficult thing either, but it's not easy to do illusions well. And it took us a long time, and it's kind of boring. And to do that, we had to draw on everything to make that show entertaining. So,
Did they select the illusion, or did you?
I gave them a bunch of illusions. I told them some things that we could do. Obviously, it doesn't work for everything because they wanted things that you could present together, but could just give the tipping point to the star, so that he could be filmed. But they wanted it to be like a double act.
I see.
So there's not many illusions that work like that. I mean, the first thing that jumps to mind was I had a suspended animation.
Right.
But they'd already booked that illusion,
which is the metamorphosis effect, where you.
Yeah, they'd already booked that with a hands clock. I don't know. I'm supposed to be saying this, but I know that a hands clock was booked to do that show, and he was doing suspended, and I was doing clearly impossible because that was one of the things that I'd left, and Penn and Teller were doing it with the straitjacket, and then. Although Keelan was on it and Mark Paul was doing mentalism, and Keelan's just been on doing quick change. Mm. But actually, it was amazing for me. I thought, wow, I was so humbled when I first realised that the magicians were Penn and Teller, Hands Clock, and me. I went, wow, I looked out there.
That's a good circle to be moving.
I looked out there, but I just got lucky with that, and it was a real pleasure to do, and Stephen was very gracious and great host for the show, and I don't know if it'll get recommissioned, but I really enjoyed that experience.
Who's your best friend in magic, Jamie? Have you got someone you pick up the phone to every day to talk about your tour, or your things you're concerned about, things you're excited about?
I have so many friends in magic, and they're all interesting characters. I mean, I'm great friends with Paul Cook, Russ Stevens, David Penn. They don't necessarily all get on, but they're all good friends of mine. Alex Romanov and Adam Heppenstall, and those are the. But I mean, as a whole, magicians, I really like the pros, but I like talking about the subtleties of performance, and I enjoy people that get it. Or, I think it's one thing to understand how a trick works, but I think it's a whole nother thing to then understand why it fools somebody, and then to further understand how do you then make that entertaining to people. And I think there's plenty of room for all of us. I think that there's a lot of people out there that wait to see a good magic show, and there's no need for jealousy and stuff, and I think everybody can just make their own market, and we're trying to do our little thing.
I've got some more quick fire questions if
Sure.
you're up for this.
I'm going to drink some water as I'm recovering from a cold, as you can probably hear. I'm
are.
right in the middle. I've been rehearsing this. I'm doing this water escape, for the tour, and I had this freezing cold in the warehouse yesterday. I've got this cold already, and I'm leaping in and out of this tank of water, which was not exactly warm. I'm not going to tell you it was ice cold, but it was not exactly warm. And I'm opening in a week. I'm on death's door.
It's the getting wet, getting dry, getting wet, getting dry that makes you ill, isn't it? That's what does it.
If you could see this on this table here, we're sat very kindly name dropping at Objectives offices. Here with a whole smoothers, vinos, chesty cuffs, and buckets of water, trying to get through this. See if my voice can just last till the end of Richard's quick-fire question round.
Thanks to Anthony Owen. He's lent us an office here at Objective because the Magic Circle is closed today because Darren is poorly. So he's very kindly sorted us out here. Favourite magician of all time for you?
Doug Henning.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Because he just had such an honesty in the way he performed, and he just had such joy for what he did, and you couldn't help but like the guy.
Favourite trick that you perform? Is it the iPads?
It is now. I've had so many. It's the one that has meant the most to me at the time. iPads, yeah. It's funny you would say that, but yes, absolutely. That's the one that I get the most out of.
When I watched you do it for the first time, I think it was on TV actually, and I thought you'll be doing that for a long, long time. Every now and again you see a magician do a trick and you go, magician's going to be doing that for a long time. It's brilliant. Honestly, it's one of my favourite things I've seen in the last few years. So,
well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
I'm
glad you say that, because a lot of times people don't get it. I get a lot of people come up to me and go, "Well, I know how it's done. The things are behind the iPads." Well, of course they're behind the iPads. That's not. That's not what it's about.
Favourite trick of all time. So one you don't necessarily perform.
It's going to be an obvious one, I'm afraid. Floating light bulb.
Really?
Yeah, because I saw it live, and it's the closest that I wanted to say flying, but I didn't get that when I saw it live. And I'm a big Keep Magic Live fan. I'm not going to bang the drum about TV magic, because it's all very good. But I love live magic. That's where it should be in my mind. And when I saw the floating light bulb live,
was that Hans Clock or was that Blackstone?
I've seen both.
Right. Okay.
Blackstone did it better because it was Blackstone, because I just knew the history behind it. When Hans Clock did it, though, it was stunning. And Hans Clock is one of my favourite magicians. I just think the guy's brilliant. But the floating light bulb live was just stunning because you felt like you wanted to cry. It was so beautiful.
Best gig you ever did?
When I did the London Palladium the first time, it was on a charity show, and that probably meant the most at that point in my career. I think you can get to a point where you've done enough that it doesn't mean as much to you, because when you first decide you want to get that big gig, by the time you actually get it, most of the enthusiasm for it is actually gone, because it's so much work to get there. It's almost a relief when it's over. But when I first did the Palladium, that meant something.
Best magic performance you ever saw? This can be like a lecture or something that kind of inspired you, I guess, is what I'm looking for here.
Let's see. I mean, I've seen Copperfield a bunch of times, and I've been lucky enough to see him when he's been great. And the last time that I saw Copperfield, he was phenomenal. And that's got to be up there. But the best performance of things I ever saw were things that changed my life when I was a kid. And it was things like Mystique that had the most impact on me of any point in my life, because it changed everything for me, and I didn't realise that it could connect like that. So I'd probably say Mystique, Siegfried and Roy, David Copperfield. They're obvious answers.
Yeah. When was the last time you saw Copperfield?
I saw him, I think it was 3 years ago. I know that he recently went through a big change of material where he started to really develop again. So I saw him just before then with some of the classic stuff. He was still doing the Shadowbox motorbike appearance. He was still closing up with the Fan and the 13. And he was on a great form the night I saw him, and it was just fabulous. And we were in the front row, and I could reach out and grab the wheel of the motorbike production if I wanted to. It was that close to us. Maybe that was a bit of an exaggeration, but it was within 8-9 feet of the front of the stage, and you felt like you were right on top of it with the roar of the engine and everything. You really felt part of it. Like, come on, it's Copperfield.
Yeah, I've sat in the same seats actually. I know exactly what you're talking about. What sort of TV magic did you like? Is there some stuff that you?
Well, didn't we all watch Paul Daniels? I used to be nuts about the Paul Daniels show when I was a kid. I mean, there was nothing more exciting than, when you were 8 or 9 and that was going to come. For magicians of a certain age, there'll be certain people listening to this that go, no, that wasn't, and there'll be certain people that wouldn't quite remember it and watch it on repeats. But I was the prime age group. I'm 37, and I'm the prime age group for people that were with Paul at the time that he was at his height. I was a young kid, so that was a big deal. When I was a kid, very very influenced by that. And of course Wayne Dobson. I have to say Wayne Dobson, because fell into that same bracket. He made magic cool when I was about 13, 14, and he was one of the reasons as well I was interested in the illusions, and not only just the illusions but the American illusions and those well built stuff, because I was suddenly, I was used to seeing these crappy props, and all of a sudden Wayne's props all looked sleek and nice, and that was the show that brought my attention to your David Mendoza's and John Gorns and Bill Smith.
And the best thing Wayne did was he got ITV to pay for it as well.
I know, incredible.
Amazing.
I still have one of those props.
Oh, which one do you have?
I've had a couple of them over the time, and they're all passed around, via Russ and David and stuff. I still have Wayne's old Azra,
right,
which I haven't used for a few years. But I almost bought the pyramid off of David, which I loved, but I'm too tall. I couldn't get my size of me in there. There's no way.
David Penn, you mean? He's got it, I think. Hasn't
he had it. I think it went to Christian Fowler.
Okay. Final question, Jamie Allan. What advice would you give to a young magician?
It's so easy to be lofty, isn't it, when you're trying to give advice to somebody starting out and say be original, but it's so difficult. Magicians, when they get on the cafe and things, they really get on their high horse about who invented this and he stole this from me, and I think it's important to find your own style, but you can't find your own style without first emulating somebody else. So I think that's okay. I think it's good to take, and this is probably, I'll get shot down about this, but I think it's okay if you're starting out to take others' routines and try them out for your friends and go to school and do it. I don't think you should be shot down in flames because of it, as long as you don't then go and make money with it and you find your own style. But in order to find, you've got to have a style. If you're wanting to be a professional, you've got to be different from everybody else. But the only way unfortunately you can be like that is to first of all try on a few different hats and see which one fits. And I would also say to read books.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking for something new, magicians, if you're starting out in magic, your first thing to do is you want to read the magic magazines, go on the websites and look what are the new releases so you can have the latest trick. But most of those is all just commercialism now. I mean, in the old days, people used to release stuff when it was good. Maybe I'm just talking about the old days. Maybe it was always like that. But now I think that everybody's so obsessed about having the new trick when all the best magic is still out there. It's hidden away in the backs of books, dusty old books that nobody's ever going to open. And you could pull half of those things out and have the most original act in the world and nobody would ever know where you got it from.
That's great. Can I ask you, it's just an extension to that, but what's some of the books that you have enjoyed or you found most?
Well, some of the books I still have at home. I mean, I have, I learned from modern magic.
Right.
I had my mum took me into an antique shop in Warwickshire. We were looking, I had a rabbit. I wanted a top hat for the rabbit. What a cliche that is. So I was doing kids' parties, I was a little boy. So we went to this shop that had these hats at the window. My mum said to the guy, "You don't have any top hats, do you?" And the guy said, "We only have a magician's top hat."
That's funny you should
It's amazing. So he took us out in the back, and there was all these cabinets, excuse me, full of all these old magic tricks. And this magician died, and he'd ended up with all of the stuff. So my mum did a deal with him to buy all of this stuff for like no money. It was just unbelievable amounts of tables and silvery tubes. It was like a proper old Davenport's in the heyday of wooden boxes and little mirror chests and just unbelievable stuff. So anyway, I got it all, and in there was a couple of books. There was first editions of Robert Houdin, and there was a first edition of Modern Magic, which I learned from, and it was all dog-eared and stuff. And then one day I saw one of these change hands for a huge amount of money. I went, "Oh my God, I've got that book." But mine was in terrible condition. I've since bought another one. I collect older things. I try to. I'm not a rich man, but I collect older posters and old books and old tricks and things like that. I'm fascinated. I'm far more interested in the golden age and the heyday of magic. The Illusionists 1903 is touring, and that's a show that I'd love to see
and be in, maybe.
You never know. I do a show about modern magic and technological magic, but really I love the old heyday of it. My show is in two halves, though. iMagician, the first half of the show is about the evolution of magic. So I talk about the history of magic and present tricks that the performers may have done if they were here today. And the second half we do magic, which is relevant to today. But I will warn any magicians that I take a lot of artistic license with that, because it's not for you. It's not for you, it's for the real people.
Jamie, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the tour. I'm going to come and see it in Swindon. I can't wait to see it. Jamie Allan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you for your time, Jamie. I really enjoyed chatting to you. His show, iMagician, is on a national tour in the UK until the 31st of May. Check it out. Go to imagicianlive.com for all of the tour date and ticket information. And when you go and see it, take some non-magicians with you too. Don't forget, the last episode of the series, Nick Einhorn, is also available now for your immediate listening pleasure. It's episode 24. Thanks for listening to this one, though. I will see you there.